my favourite conversation of the week that we have about politics is the one we're going to have right now. Cos Samaras is, of course, the man in charge of Redbridge. They are a polling company, data. They are the ones who've got this rolling 20-seat stuff. We'll talk about the mechanics of that in a second. And a man who's fought many a campaign and talked about many more on television. And I love watching him each and every time he's done it. Way back when at Channel 9, but more importantly here at Sky News, the great Michael Kroger. Lads, hello, welcome, g'day. So, let's get into these pictures of the polls. Cos, I'll start with you and the one that you're apparently going to be rolling. Is it correct? It's 20 marginal seats and you'll check it every week?
That's right. Up until the federal election's called, we'll probably check it every 2 weeks. That's not going to be long, obviously, because I think he's going to call it over the next few weeks, is my gut instinct. So once he calls it, we're in the field every week and publishing through the News Limited papers every week to enable Australians to have a very accurate track on what the campaign is doing to critical marginal seats. It's exactly the same track that the major parties run during the election campaign. When I was a former party official, this is exactly the track that we ran to basically diagnose what the campaign was doing from a Labor perspective.
So that's fascinating to see. For once, we're actually going to share the same data at the same level, at the same way. It's going to be great, and well done for doing it. Well done for whoever's ponying up the cash, because it's more info helps us here. Also, Michael, let's talk about where some of these findings are. Okay, if you know they're undercounting, then we're up towards 80. If they're undercounting, we're more like the high 60s. But apparently the number at 73, it includes some pretty big gets, and they're all gets off the Labor Party.
Well, that's right, Matt. As you know, I've said for months I think Dutton's on 72 and Albanese on 66. This poll says 73 to 66. So it's taken them a while to catch up with the Paul Murray show, but I think it's about right. I mean, there's zero chance of Albanese winning in his own right. Let's start with that. And I've said for months I think Dutton's favourite to win. He could get up to a majority in his own right. That's quite possible. Labor appear to be in trouble in seats around the Hunter now, and they're in trouble in seats in Victoria around the 5 to 6% mark, like Bruce, where they're in trouble. So, Labor have had a 11-year-old state government here, which is immensely unpopular, and New South Wales Prime Ministers are never popular in Victoria. Let me just say that straight away. So, a combination of those things and the appalling performance of Albanese and the anti-Semitism, et cetera, meant that there's a big swing on in Victoria. So the question is, can Dutton get to 76 in his own right? And he's got a good chance.
Cos, let's talk about the upper regions of things here, right? I've heard many people from inside the Liberal Party or the National Party say, oh, mate, Hunter, there's a lot of people pissed off up there. Insert the thing this, insert that. I've heard the same about Shortland. I've even heard the same, of course, about Eden Monero, but they've got a pretty high-profile minister there. But presumably, Eden Monero is very close to Gilmore. Gilmore was a very marginal seat for Labor, but it looks like it should be jumping back to the Libs. When you're seeing the data, and again, you're not twisting it, you're just showing us what the numbers are. Yep. When you start to see that upper edge of stuff, what is that telling you, and would you be willing to bet a bedroom of the house on it?
Yeah, we've run our own MRPs, and we've already done 3 last year, and we're going to publish more this year. In addition to the data we're obviously publishing through News Limited. And I would say that, all those Hunter electorates, maybe Patterson will definitely be line ball and contestable. Really, I think the Labor is going to get into trouble in traditional outer suburban electorates in Sydney and in Melbourne, but also in Brisbane, seats like Blair, Lyons in Tasmania, Bullwinkle, obviously, and Tangi in Western Australia, possibly Boothby in South Australia. And then really, I think we're not going to see many seats be gained by Labor. So although YouGov does have the Greens losing seats to the Labor Party, I find that hard to believe. I think that the Greens will hold most of their political territory. They ain't going to grow because they've got their own problems. But a seat like Griffiths, that's that high-profile incumbent Green MP, Max Chandler-Mather, unlikely to be losing that seat to the Labor Party. So really, we're looking at a Labor Party in the mid-60s, maybe. Dutton will be hovering in the high 60s, low 70s. Now, I know that he says that the Tills won't side with him, but I wouldn't rule it out. I mean, there is, if he gets close enough, it's going to be pretty hard for Labor to demand from the crossbench almost in its entirety to side with them and hold that government together during the next term. So we're going to live in interesting times if this trend continues.
Now, Michael, one thing that is relentless in the polling is the other number. The other number is, the first time I saw the other number as being quite a significant number was 2016 because of the Turnbull effect and plenty of people who were wanting to go somewhere else. That lessened in 19. In 22, the other, of course, represented everything from Clive Palmer to the Teals. That other number is pretty stubborn. That other number is sitting pretty hard, and then once you start to get down to some of this seat by seat, it shows no movement in Teal land. Also, some of the polling, and again, I'm sort of taking a little bit from here and a little bit from there, but it's talking about how both of the leaders, they're okay, but they're not really slamming it home. So what do you say to your fellow Liberals or whoever might be watching trying to get free advice via the television right now about how to overcome this bugger the both of them, they're as bad as each other stuff that might be the difference between Albo minority and Dutton minority?
So you have to talk directly to the working middle class, right above the noise, the media, etc. And in politics, what you want is for people to sit in their homes and watch your leaders and say, I think he thinks like I think, or she thinks like I think. What he says, that's exactly what I think. And if all you're talking about is a bigger road or a bridge or all these sort of, allocation of government monies, it doesn't make any impression on people. People are interested in culture, who you are, what are your values, what do you stand for? We saw a recent example of that overseas. Who are you? What do you stand for? He says the things that I think. So, for example, public servants' salaries. In this country, public service salaries have gone through the roof and are at ridiculous levels. Ridiculous levels. The Prime Minister gets 400 to 500. His boss gets, his underling, the person that reports to him, gets $1 million. So these public service salaries, so the first leader that comes out and says we're capping public service salaries, you can't get more than the Prime Minister gets, I'm sorry. And if you don't like 400 or 500 as a salary, go somewhere else. Once you start talking that language and talk directly to people and they think, that's exactly what I think. Yeah. 11 million people come into America. Trump says, I'm sorry, we can't have that. People think, I agree with you, mate.
Well, so, also, it works to me. Yeah, I mean, it works to me where it should be that it's like, okay, the reason you get paid more in the private sector is because the private sector is where risk exists. There is no risk in the public sector, which means it's harder to sack you, you get more superannuation, but the idea you get double the Prime Minister is cake and eat it too stuff. Can I show you just this little moment from the Prime Minister on Valentine's Day? Let's not get too deep into it, but there are little moments, because obviously my background way back when was in FM radio, right? And obviously compulsory voting means I love everyone who's here and we're counting the grains of sand and all the rest of it, but of course there are other people who, what about maths last night? How good's the footy going to be? Listening to Kyle, right? All of that stuff. And there are little moments where those people see an example of the leaders, all right? Certainly we know ukuleles and all the rest of from the last election, but what about this from the Prime Minister on Valentine's Day? Have a look.
Roses are red, violets are blue. It's Valentine's Day and we love blue-collar workers.
Geez, Cos, I can feel your cringe from here, my friend. That's the sort of stuff. Am I right that there is stuff that compulsory voter land sees that can be just as devastating as your election costings?
Yeah, look, fundamentally the problem Labor's got is they have a Prime Minister who has low levels of what we would define campaign IQ. and unlike 2022, they can't hide him. Right? Yeah. So
that's right, he had a week off with COVID.
They're not going to be able to hide him this time, and he's going to be front and centre of their campaign, and they have to work out a way to actually try to get his mojo working. He never had it, right?
Yeah.
There are leaders that are really skilled at winning campaigns, selling that, as you rightly pointed out, as Michael rightly pointed out as well, that cultural connection, an emotional connection between voters and what you were talking about. If you're going to come across wooden like that, it's not a good start.